Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with George Bardissi, who is the CEO, the founder, the everything for bvoip. Hey, George, how are you this morning?
Doing all right. First week of the NFL season is now officially in the book. I think Aaron Rodgers played 60 seconds of football, and now he's pretty much out for the season. But I'm sorry for all you Jets fans out there.
Well, I was going to ask you what team you rooted for, but I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, got my new jam right here. Yeah,
Your bling.
Exactly right. Exactly right. This is how I roll down the street. It's how I fill up gas in my car. Get sandwiches from the shop. I roll around with this all day.
I got you. Well, I don't know, man. I would be worried about somebody hitting me over the head for all that gold, So cool piece.
Give it your best shot. That's what I'd say.
Cool deal.
Well, George, we're built pretty tough here in Philly. Let's be honest.
Well, I was going to ask you. Always ask everybody, how's the weather today in Philly? Then, because that's where you are, right?
Yeah, the weather is really nice. Actually, this is we've had a pretty mild summer, to be honest. I know there's people down in Texas and Florida and Phoenix and all those southern areas are just like triple digits, but no, we've had it pretty nice. It's I think it's a cool 70 something degrees today.
All right. Nice. Well, I'm right there with you. 79 in South Carolina here. So I think it's going to get into the mid 80s, but they say that a cold front is coming. So it's going to be more fall like temperatures. I'm excited about that.
Oh, that just means it's football season to me.
There you go. There you go. It's all about football. So exactly. That works. Awesome. And the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, like I said, if anybody ever wants to come into Philadelphia and go to the game with George, you just let me know. And if it's available, get the full experience. I also would tell you not to wear the opposing team's colors in the stadium. Go neutral. It's always been my advice. I think that's paid off for many people, but I cannot guarantee your safety if you roll in with, I don't know. They got the Vikings coming into town this Thursday. If you want to be a Vikings fan rolling into Philadelphia, which I'm sure, many have heard the story, or stories if you lived in that area, especially in the NFC Championship back in 2017, like some clown from Minnesota decided to take a private plane and then they roll up to the stop to the Rocky Steps, right? They put a Vikings jersey on the Viking on the Rocky statue. It was on ESPN, and then you walk through the parking lot to get to the stadium. It's on you. Don't be upset if there's projectile, beer cans flying at you, but that's how we roll here in Philadelphia.
Everybody's taking cover.
Well, I mean, the advice has been given. Now, whether you take it or not is up to you.
I gotcha.
Okay.
So George, let's talk a little bit about how bvoip helps with people, their MSPs, the chat, the SMS.
Before we even get into that, Scott, okay. I'm gonna stop you. If I can share my screen for a quick second. A couple of announcements, right? Because we're getting into the thickness of conference season, right? This like September, October, November. So a couple of cool events that are coming up, for the community. So at DattoCon in Miami, should you be going, or you just happen to be in South Florida and you're an MSP, we will be doing another crazy party in this time in Miami, because that's where DattoCon is. So it'll be on October 3rd, which I believe is a Wednesday, and 10 p.m. at the Hard Rock in Miami, right down, the water from the Intercontinental Hotel. So awesome. Definitely join us. You can register at the bottom of this page. You can register if you're an MSP or not an MSP. Obviously, encouraging MSPs to come is absolutely free, right? Network with your peers. It's definitely a community event here. And then at IT Nation, I'm saying that because this is officially being endorsed now by ConnectWise. The MSP Community Block Party in Orlando will be November 8th from 9 to 2. It's going to be right in the when you're going down International Drive in Orlando. It's a big Ferris wheel. That is Icon Park, and we're taking over half of it. And last year we had the All-American Rejects as our entertainment. This year we're going to have not one, but not two, but three radio recognizable bands for your entertainment performing together at the block party. So we're super excited about this. Again, you can register here. And again, these are totally about the community, for the community, absolutely free to attend. attend. We encourage you to get in, grab a drink, maybe some food, network with your peers, have a good time. This is how we pay it back, by the way, right? Like,
very cool.
All year long, you're being pitched and sold to, and the gimmicks and specials and going out of business, 50% off signs, whatever. This is how we turn this back around and like hook you guys up. So I just wanted to open with that, right? Because they're coming up here.
Sure,
one is in the first week in October, one is in the second week of November. We're going to close the year out with these mega parties for you guys.
Well, you've been doing these parties for a while, hadn't you, George, with the MSP initiative?
Yeah. So this year, I think we had 5 or 6 of these in various form and formats.
And they just keep getting better, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a win-win, right, Scott? I mean, here's the thing, right? Events are super expensive to put on. You're doing the boat thing finally, right? And like, it's just like, you don't know what it costs until you actually get underneath the hood and you're like, wow, like, soda's $8 or something, right? And then all of a sudden it spirals out of control from there. So like from a conference holder, an event holder standpoint, because it costs so much, this is kind of where things are imbalanced, right? Where vendors have to spend all this money to co-sponsor this, that, and the other. But then the experience as the attendee, right? Like we can, this conversation happens over and over again. So bottom line is we've collaborated with many an event holder, right? We went into Europe this year. We did Enable had an event in Prague, which was first time I've ever been to Prague, was pretty cool. And then Dado and Kaseya did an event in Dublin, really cool, right? Especially when it's nice out. We stopped by IT Nation's event in London and did something around that. So there was 3. And then we came back stateside. We work with Taylor Business Group and their event just a few weeks ago back in Fort Lauderdale. And we did this mega yacht. We call it the MSP Community Boat Party. And so that was number 4. We ran our own non-bus tour event finally, right? Because we did the bus tour for like 3 years, driving around America, kind of doing the parking lot thing. And so we did something called MSP Community Mind. So this wasn't a party. This was our own education-based event, which was awesome, by the way. I really appreciate everybody that kind of came together to make that happen. Kind of wanted to break the normal format of how industry events work. And I think we really found the middle ground to like kind of merge both sides of the aisle into what was I felt a pretty cool experience. So that was MSP Community Minds. And then we came back for DattoCon and IT Nation. So as MSP Initiative, that was kind of our effort for the year. I know coming into next year, we're already hearing from a bunch of other places that want to collaborate on things. And we're open to doing that. I think the best part of it is we want to create, no offense to the trade show floor and the pop-up banners and the 6-foot tables with 2 chairs or whatever. You can do that all day long and they all do. Like, I want to create something that you could be like, oh, that was really cool. I came away with
something unique,
a good time. Yeah. So, I like the experience, effect. I'm all about it. I know it, I'm bald, so it does come with some stress. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what MSP Initiative was, kind of created for. And we really appreciate everybody that, has come out over the years and actually done that. And like, we'll continue to do these, right? And they get just a little bit bigger and a little bit better. And, ultimately our goal is so that you can go home and be like, wow, like, remember last year for All American Rejects, even though it was in the middle of a hurricane or tropical storm, whatever it is, a bunch of people brought their kids out and like, they wanted to see these guys play live and we're like, sure, do it, go for it. So this year, I think we went a little bit like, I would say All American Rejects. You were in the radio, Scott. I'd say like early 2000s. They were probably, associated with. We went slightly backwards in the timeline and went like late 90s.
Oh, that's my time. That was my jam.
So late 90s, 3, names that if I told you them right now, you'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like if I showed you what a set list looks like from these guys, you'd be like, I know every song on this list. So we're excited for this one. We'll be announcing the bands here probably in the next little while. Of course, just like working with everything else, we have to get all this stuff approved. So yeah, fun times, but very exciting. I'm pumped for this one. These two coming up.
Sounds like an awesome show. I know you and your team have been working on that hard for a while then. What am I remembering with Channel Strong? That was where you went on the road and went to parking lots and traveled, right? That's
yeah.
what all
I
that
mean,
was.
like, let's hope the pandemic rules never come back.
I know.
I don't know. I'm hearing maybe not. Who knows? But
Shh.
when everybody was, on the, in the basement or in the living room or wherever you were hiding,
right.
But if you're in fresh air, right, everything was fine, right? All the rules worked. So I was like, okay, cool. So we definitely did we did a lot of, testing and all this other stuff that went along with doing things right. But we drove through, I mean, tens of thousands of miles through America on tour buses, like we felt like we were on a band. We were a rock band. This is how they do it, right? They don't fly. They roll.
It was really kind of cool.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was a pretty intense schedule, Scott. I got to be honest, because we were doing like 4 or 5 cities back to back to back to back. Every day was a new city, and we had to like work with MSPs to borrow their parking lots, even though nobody was
Sure.
in the office. And it was interesting.
Sounds like it was a lot to put on.
Well, there's a lot of logistics, and
Gotcha.
we're not scared of hard work by any means, but it's tedious. There's landlords and trash cans and, certain parts that you got to live within or whatever it is. And it was a good time though. And you know what? Back to the community aspect, we really just wanted people to, like, I don't know, like, talk to people again, like see people in person, in the fresh air, safely, right? And be able to like talk shop, see what's going on, how are things going. And like, to be honest with you, I think we all learn the most by talking with other people who are in the sandbox, I like to call it, because
sure,
like, kind of read in between all the lines and like get to people who are actually doing the real work kind of thing. And like, those are the people who are underneath the desks, plugging in the wires, working the nights and the weekends, not taking vacations. Hopefully everybody finds an answer and breaks out of that cycle. But we've all been there. And so we just wanted to do something a little bit different for those people.
Well, that's awesome. I really enjoyed watching and following the Channel Strong tours. I guess what we can call it, the Channel Strong tours. So awesome.
It was a good time. But yeah, that's why we wanted to, like, finally, when all the COVID restrictions everywhere kind of came down and we parked the tour bus, that's where MSP Community Minds ultimately came up. We did our first like in-person event in Denver, back in August here. And we had about 90-ish people come out for that. It was our very first one. I think that's pretty good for a first event.
Heck yeah.
Like we did MSP panels, and then we did workshops, right? Not just breakout sessions where I'm taking 45 minutes to like PowerPoint you, like legitimately, like you're working with an expert and you're working through a topic, right? Rather than just one side. So I think that worked out really well. And, we're all about learning, right? And sometimes the best way to learn is to like break the format a little bit with 2-hour workshops that you could actually dig deeper into a topic.
There you go.
I think it went really well. I think we're going to try and plan a couple of these next year, right? To keep the the trend going.
Very cool.
Hopefully everybody else in the industry kind of realizes that like the format can be different and does still work, but I digress.
Well, like you said a minute ago, it's all about communicating, and communicating is actually at the forefront and the core of bvoip, right?
Yes, that's right.
You like my intro? See what I did
love
there?
that. That was a smooth radio transition.
I know.
So that was good. So we're talking about SMS and SMS and MMS and messaging today, right? That's kind of our theme. So as long as you're not having birds drop off your messages, right? Pigeons, whatever, although this is an eagle, let's be clear. Text messaging, right? Like, let's go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, where there was like limited, you only had so many messages, and then you had the nights and weekend plans. Remember those?
Sure.
Like messaging has clearly moved into more of a communication channel or channels. I'll still be honest, and I think we've talked about this before, Scott. I'm a phone guy. I mean, yeah, I text like everybody else, but like, if I need to have a legitimate conversation with you, I want to call you, right? Like right now, I'm having a problem with a vendor, and the only way I can talk to them is through Facebook Messenger, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, Can I just
So
solve?
why is that? Why, look, I'm the same way. Like clients sometimes will send me a text message about he'll ask me a question on a text message, a technical question. And, I typically try to reply to people the way that they first reached out to me. So
Sure.
if someone texts me, but I realize it's going to take me 10 minutes to type a text out to them, I'm more likely just to want to pick up the phone and call them and just
Right.
ignore the text and
Right. So
just say,
this is a
hey.
perfect example, right? I'm having a problem with StubHub right now. And I can they don't even have their own, I could submit a help thing if I could find it through their app or their website, which is buried, and make it very difficult. Or I went on Facebook Messenger and I'm trying to chat with somebody from StubHub, and I'm like, there is no phone number for these people. Like, it is very hard to actually to the point where in the chat, I'm like, can I call someone or can you call me? Right. And this whole, I get it, right? They think it's faster. I always joke, although half joking, right? Where Frontier Airlines deleted their number, right? And sent it to a message saying this number is not working, and effectively only take communication through a chat app. And I'm like, I get it. Everybody likes to communicate in the way that they do. I would still argue, depending on the business that you're in, that may or may not work well. Like, Scott, in some areas, you can text 911. I'm not texting 911. I want to talk to somebody and tell me
Right.
on the way. Like, that's just me. Maybe I'm old school. I'm still a pretty young guy, I think, but if somebody's if a place is on fire or somebody hit a telephone pole and we're in trouble,
Let me text somebody.
I'm going to spend more time texting someone than just, hey, I'm at the corner, right? This is the street. Please send somebody, right? Like, that takes a lot longer this way. I don't know.
So what is it about the people who love text and do everything by text? What is it about the texting culture, would you say, that, makes people want to just stick with text? My wife, for instance, I love her to death, but she would much rather text you than talk to you on the phone. She'll talk to me on the phone all day long, but everybody else, no. She don't like to
being
answer the
pitched
phone.
as a generational thing, right?
I think so.
Gen Z, millennial, the younger, the less they want to talk on the phone. I don't know if that's just they're being brought, taught this way through the learning process or what, but the people who can articulate themselves very well tend to get further, in my opinion. I digress. That being said, there is a place for it, right?
Yep.
I'm getting a notification or an update, or your package is shipped, or your technician's on the way, or hey, there's an outage occurring and the expected, resolution time is X. I think nice. In that context, it makes sense.
Sure.
But if I need to have a one-on-one, back and forth live conversation with somebody about something, I feel like it takes 4 or 5 times longer to just get the same information out.
And what if you're driving too? That's dangerous unless you're doing voice to text.
Yeah, and there's Siri and Alexa and all this, whatever. But here's the reality, right? If you're driving, obviously messaging is probably not the best part. I get a notification of something, but if you're having a real world conversation, let's even go backwards, right? Let's apply this to IT and managed services for a second, right?
Okay. That's where we should be.
But there's so many ways to go with it. If you're sending a text message in to start a support ticket or to trigger an I need help, maybe the collection of information up front, maybe that's easy for someone to send in a text message. But then the subsequent troubleshooting and resolution, I find that hard to continue on text. Right? At some point, the channel needs to change probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're seeing a lot. Now, if it's hey, please help me reset my password, right? And they send you a link on your text message. Okay, that's simple, right? But if it's complex and you need multiple things to be done, imagine somebody sets up, pick your favorite ticketing system, PSA, whatever, and you start this workflow of all these questions, right, that automatically get sent to somebody. Could you imagine somebody having to, you know what I mean? It just feels like there's a very fine balancing act on what you can successfully do via chat, via messaging, via SMS, that you can do via, every other channel, right? I would still argue, and there's some companies in the channel, Scott, larger MSPs that have sold managed services and IT services packages where they cannot actually call someone. They can only chat. And I think that those, and again, I'm not behind the scenes at these companies, but I would argue that, if the idea was you could lower your labor rate because somebody could run more chats simultaneously than be on the phone at once, I think that there's a diminishing return at some point, because that person would then turn around and say, I'm willing to pay more to talk to somebody.
Yep.
That's just my opinion. I think it to be right. It's how I would probably do it, but we can't avoid the messaging angle altogether, right? So
I definitely think it's an age thing, though, because you and I are probably about the same age. I'm almost 50, so.
Oh no, I'm definitely not, but that's okay.
Oh, are you?
We're still on the same mindset.
Okay. All
That's
right.
okay.
Well,
still,
yeah. Well, are you older than me or younger than me?
Oh, I'm younger than you, Scott. I'm 37.
Oh, okay. Well, my wife is in her late 30s, so yeah. I don't know. I'm young at heart, maybe. So
I was going to say, like 30 going on 50. Yeah, for sure. But like, that being said, like, I don't know. I was always like, again, maybe my situation's a bit different. My parents immigrated into the country. I'm first generation, like the hard work and like you having to, hustle and like nobody's going to come pay your bills, right? Very much ingrained in me at an early age, right? So I started working really early, probably before I was supposed to be. And like, but I saw the world from two ways, right? Hey, this is how my parents were taught and grew up, and this is how they learned. And then this is like what's actually happening in America at that time, right? And like, had one foot in each pool, right? But that being said, I adopted technology really early. So think about me before cell phones, like everybody had one. I had a cell phone in like 5th and 6th and 7th grade. Like I was the only one, like, pulling out the antenna and like calling for rides and stuff for my parents. So like I adopted technology really early because like I naturally like just, love that, that part of society. But that being said, like time and a place, right? I think messaging can be used tactfully and successfully in certain instances. And I think that you can use it as the beginning part of whatever the process is to get you to the other side, especially if, you're able to send quick pieces of information or, certain scenarios that can be automated. Like, let me give you an idea. In bvoip, we felt that on call was just there had to be a better way. So many people do pass the cell phone around or have to manually switch the number or whatever. So we built a tool called OneStream Signal where, we can monitor for voicemail messages, right? So somebody calls in, it's after hours, they, however you're selling your services, they leave a message and they're like, I need help, call me ASAP. And then like an answering service, we've pre-scheduled the hierarchy, right? We're going to try George first. We're going to text him, call him, email him. So I've hit him every which way. If that person doesn't respond because, maybe they're a heavy sleeper, it goes to the next person and next person. So
the hunt, I think you call it hunt.
In that case, we've used SMS as part of that escalation process so that the person could literally just reply back with yes. And the process would stop because you now have taken ownership of that message, right? So like that's an example of where you can automate things, right? Another way could be, let's say somebody wants to open up an issue with you that you would typically call a support ticket, and let's say they have an issue. You know what? Sometimes I'll take my phone out, Scott, and I'll take a picture of the error on the screen. And you know what? That's just as good because like now I at least have I have the blue screen error message or whatever it is, right? And like, if they're sending that message in as part of him having this issue, here's the error, let me know what you find out. That's cool, right? Because I got the additional context that I usually don't get with it's broken, please help, right?
Sure.
So like, that's cool. Or, hey, your technician is on the way, right? How many times do you call the cable company or the internet company or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, the time window is between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And you're like,
that's all day. I know.
So like, hey, your technician is on the way. Cool, right? Like, I don't need to talk to anyone, but I'll take that message and run with it, right? So I think that there's ways to, as IT service providers, as MSPs, properly adopt messaging, whether it be in an automated way, whether it be in a conversational way, and like integrate it into your workflow, the tools that you're using to run your business, but in a way where you're still not giving out your personal cell phone number, where they just you're the only person that can handle it. Isn't the whole point, unless you're one person, shop, isn't the whole point of all these tools so that if you're not available, somebody else could jump on it, when you're tied up, right? And then to your point, the documentation, the logging of what was done, right? The CYA effect, the billing that comes after that, whatever. So yeah, it's there, right? And so, there's a couple of wrinkles though, Scott. I'm just going to throw it out there now, because I don't care whether you're on a big box VoIP company, if, however SMS is incorporated into your world, right? Short of your cell phone, right? So if you're, let's say you're in the States and you're on AT&T, Verizon, or one of the companies that rent space on their network, right? The Boost Mobiles, the Mint Mobiles, the Metro PCSs, the whatever, right? There's all these like, virtual carriers underneath the big guys, right? Short of a cell phone, right? You messaging to and from a cell phone. There's this new legislation that came out that kind of came apart with the robo dialing effect, right? So, that the car warranty people, all that stuff, right? Like, people are just getting phone calls from everywhere, especially coming in from out of the country, by the way. That was a big problem. So, the government's like, we need to stop this robo dialing. Well, the sister legislation to robo dialing is what they call 10DLC, right? That's the formal, kind of acronym for it. And effectively what you need to do is you need to, like you would be porting a phone number, you need to go through a form-based process to submit your SMS registration. So what does that look like? You have a tax ID that needs to be assigned to it, right? So you're associating actual phone numbers with a company, corporate, whether you're nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter, tax ID, EIN, whatever. And effectively, you're picking a profile of, well, how are you going to be using your SMS, right? And there's different options. Is it totally automated? Like, is there a mixed use, right? There's all these different selections. So 49 numbers at a time, you can submit a SMS registration form for 10DLC. They call it a campaign registration, but erase the word campaign because I know it comes with the context. It doesn't make sense. Just, you want to start messaging from your phone, your business phone numbers, right? And again, this process is the same with no matter who it is, right? Could be Comcast, could be Verizon, could be RingCentral, could be bvoip. It really doesn't matter, right? So once you fill out this paperwork, you put your tax ID number in, you complete your form, you put in your 49 numbers per form for registration at a time. Somebody goes and validates you. And then once your validation is done, you can activate your messaging plan. I mean, so more or less that's what's happening at the moment. So just know that there's a little bit of a wrinkle, right? Where you have to go and actually go through this process. Once you've been approved, and I've heard some, like, I had a weird one the other day, Scott. Somebody submitted their SMS registration and it came back rejected because they didn't have a working website.
And so it's like, really a way, it's current legislation in a way that, would you call it legislation?
I'll call it legislation. I think it's good.
So it's a way to cut down on all the spam text and all the junk SMS. Okay.
Correct. And you've all gotten it, right? Hey, you've won a free iPhone, or hey, click on this link to get your $200 free gift card, whatever. Anyway, long story short, once you go through this process, at least in bvoip land, we just assume, hey, you can turn on SMS or MMS messaging on all of your company numbers, right? Assuming you have, let's say you have a lot of them, maybe you only have one main company number, whatever it may be, you can activate a plan on your entire account, regardless of however many phone numbers or users you have. And then effectively, you can either do one-to-one messaging, right? So like, hey, this is George's direct dial number. That messaging goes to George's app or whatever. Or you could do one-to-many messaging where calls or messages come into a group of people. and then they all get notified, and then somebody can then, kind of run with it whenever they're available, right? So that's kind of sort of what's happening at a basic level. There is some cool stuff that happens, right? Some CRM and ticketing systems have SMS capability built in. And so you can take an API and you can plug in your code, and like all of a sudden it's built in. Some you need third-party integration. And then like, just like a marketing system, right? Like, Scott, you've probably heard of things like Infusionsoft or HubSpot or even Salesforce. There are other solutions out there when it comes to SMS and MMS, right? MMS is multimedia messages, picture and video, on top of text messaging, where you can do things like autoresponders and text messaging drips, blast messaging. Hey, I have an emergency, I'm sending you an alert. Like, there's all these different like levels of where this goes. But I think you just need to like understand in context the right way to do this, right? Everybody hates spam email, right? If you start blast messaging people over and over and over again, I think that's where you could get yourself into trouble a little bit, right? So you just have to be mindful of the use case of how you want to tie in. And again, whether it's a chat widget on your website or, the mobile phone, angle, how do you reasonably want to use this? Now, I think it is perfectly acceptable, Scott. And I've been recommending for as long as I can remember, why don't MSPs and IT service providers have status pages? Right? Like when Office 365 goes down and they can't get email anyway, go to status.georgesit.com, and I'm going to have on there, Microsoft's down here. But you can incorporate SMS as one of the ways people get notified for an outage. If you can't notify them via email, how do they know?
That's right.
What they do is they call you, and then you have 100 people trying to call you at once, right? You can't answer the phone fast enough. In that case, I would usually recommend change your greeting to say, hey, we know that there is an outage.
Yep.
For more information, go to where? To me, status.georgesit.com, right? And then like follow me there, and then you'll have the latest updates as quickly as I can get them to you. So like, that's a good way, I think, of using messaging. Or somebody asking a quick question, right? A lot of people, when they're talking about chat on your website, for example, are, like, I don't know what the breakup is, right? How many of those are existing customers trying to come to you for information versus prospective people doing a drive-by, and then they're asking you questions. Hey, are you open? Hey, do you service this? Hey, I'm in this area. Do you service this problem? Right? Whatever. So like, chat can be great, but there's a catch. You need to be able to respond quickly.
That's right.
If somebody chats you and nobody's responding like within, I'd say probably a minute or so, they're just going to leave, right? So like, that's where some of the automation comes in. Hey, we're not here right now. Please leave your information. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Or, hey, if this is an urgent issue, please call us. Or
like an AI bot.
Yeah, or even just a simple auto responder, right? It doesn't need to be full blown. Hey, the bot knows where all your knowledge base articles are, and like, they ask a question, it gives them a link. Hey, have you tried this? Right? Like, that's where it can go. But like, even the basics, right? Hey, thanks for contacting us. We're not available to message you right this second, right? We're busy, but leave your information and we'll send you, we'll connect with you right away.
But it wasn't a dry text. They didn't go and get no response. They got something.
And that's the catch, right? Like, messaging and chatbots and chat widgets and all this, whatever. The idea is that they're going to get fairly quick responses of some kind. And if you haven't thought through that, I think it then could become a negative, right? Because like, they expect some sort of, response right away.
Well, I think everybody expects some kind of response whenever they ask a question of somebody or a company. If they reach out to a company, for sure, you want to get some kind of response, whatever way you reach out, whether it's a phone call, email, text, whatever. So that's key. Having somebody there, like you said, to monitor it.
Yeah, I argue all the time. I'm not yelling at people, but like, it's a debate. Some people are like, we never answer our phone. And I'm like, Okay, I hope if that works for you, cool. Some people are like, yeah, we still answer our phone, even though we encourage people to send in a ticket or go to a web page or log an issue, right? From an IT services standpoint. But like about half of our interactions with our customers still happening over live communication, right? Maybe it's a Zoom, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a Teams meeting, whatever. Some sort of live communication, about half, right? And then the other half is text, chat, portal, email, whatever, balloon message at the bottom of the screen, like so many different tools out there. I appreciate, the comment. Well, we just want to interact in the channels that our customers want to interact with us in. Cool. To a degree, right? Back to the bridge concept. You could start somewhere and then move them to another form of communication to keep the ball rolling.
That's true.
And so I'm putting all this out there because it's all available now and it's relatively inexpensive, like cheap, whatever you want to call it. Like it's not super expensive to turn this stuff on. I just want people to be practical about how they're going to use it. And the second you open up an avenue, the second you, like, I have some people who are like, I couldn't get a hold of my customer, so I sent them a text message from my work number and they responded. Awesome. But now they save that number and they start coming back to you the other way with different things. If you're not, if you didn't anticipate that, now all of a sudden they're like, well, I can't get a hold of you now. And you create a reverb of that way.
Gotcha. You're setting the precedent yourself.
Exactly. So, like a lot of people are like, hey, when I'm out of my shift, I set my autoresponder on my email. Hey, I'm not available right now. If you need help, go here. Are you doing that? If, are you forwarding your phone calls to your, a phone number, your direct dial phone number to somebody else? Maybe, same for text messaging, right? Hey, I'm not here right now. Like you just got to understand the context of how you're using it.
Now that makes total sense.
So I just, I love new things. I love to be ahead of the curve and using technology to be a little bit quicker, faster, smarter, bigger, whatever, but also practical. I think that's the part that we need to be cognizant of. I know the bigger companies, going back to the beginning part of this call, right? Frontier Airlines or your mobile carrier or whatever, right? They believe at a 30,000 foot overview, they believe that if they force you down instant message chat and SMS lane, that they can have one agent be working with multiple people simultaneously. And so it sounds good on paper, but again, some people are not multitaskers. Can you have 5 separate conversations at once and be timely?
I wouldn't be good at that.
So I think there is a, breaking point to, well, the chatbot, it's like, how many times have you gone to a chatbot, Scott, and you're like, agent? Oh, have you tried this? Agent. One more time. Can you tell? Agent. Okay, we're going to connect you with an agent. You know what I mean? Like, I go past the automation point and I just want to talk to a person.
Yeah, like if there was a button you could hit just to go straight and cancel the chat and go straight to a live rep, that would be
They're
nice.
hoping the automated part of that takes 30 to 50% of the issues away, right? Like I don't want to read a knowledge base article on this, that, or the other. I have a problem. I want to talk to somebody right now, right? And maybe that's not the nature of the issue, but if my internet goes out, I don't care about the chatbot. I want to be like, hey, when can I get somebody to my place to figure out why my line's broken?
Yep. Exactly. No, that makes total sense. There's a time and place for everything.
Yeah. So here's the good news. It's available. It's inexpensive. You can apply it to almost any phone number. Okay. Here at bvoip, I mentioned those 3 kind of layers, right? One-to-one chat, one-to-many chat, very basic. You could go into hey, I have an API key that I can plug into for integration into your CRM, PSA, ERP, whatever. And then there's the kind of like, SMS on steroids, right? Where you can do blast messaging and autoresponders and drip campaigns and whatever. So like these 3 levels exist most places. We obviously do them here at bvoip. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it just comes down to what makes sense for you or your end customer, right? If they're asking for this, and making sure that you use it, responsibly, right? Like, you can run into an issue, Scott, and you've probably seen it. I'm an iPhone guy, and like, it says report this message as spam, right, on your SMS. If you get enough of those, your numbers get blocked too, right? So like, you need to be mindful of that. And just like, when you get phone calls now on your cell phone, you see where it's like spam likely, telemarketer, that kind of stuff. Like, the same can happen for your SMS messages too, right? So like, just got to be a little bit more practical about what you're doing, and the world is available. It's open for you.
That's awesome. Well, I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm an iPhone user too. And I just started actually using that feature and paying attention to it at the bottom of unwanted text messages, unsolicited junk spam messages, report junk, and
Correct.
they just disappear.
Well, and so if enough people do that, then your messages, ultimately don't get through. So one of the things that happens,
so it like blacklisted through Apple.
Yeah. Well, or the carrier. And so one of the things that people are starting to do when you're heavily sending out a lot of messages, and the same thing goes for outbound phone calls for that matter, is that they're rotating through several numbers. So that's like not always the same number, so that you don't get accidentally blocked, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit more complex, but until things settle down, that's kind of one of the ways that people do things. So, at the end of the day, my best advice to everyone is, you can use this in a way where it actually gets a hold of people. Do not abuse text messaging the same way that you would an email. Like, text messaging should be, if there's an emergency, right, and you want to notify people of things, or just simple notification options, or if somebody initiates a conversation in either direction, that's a real person, right? Hey, just, hadn't heard from you. We're coming up on this deadline, and I'm worried that there could be a problem. Been emailing you, just, FYI, right? Or something like that. Like, don't be sending them a lot of promotional based stuff and like, hey, visit my webinar today on how to learn about messaging, right? Like, probably not the best way to invite people through text messaging at the moment.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So be purposeful with every text message that you send.
Yeah. And if your customer initiates, I get it. Don't get scared that you have to stay on that lane, right? If you're like, hey, this is best if we move it to a call. What's the best number to reach you, right? Like, that's okay, right? Or, hey, I'm going to open up a ticket for you and somebody will get back to you on this issue. That's okay, right? But like,
right.
Don't be afraid to flip the direction if keeping it going, at 10,000 lines of text later is not the best way.
No, that makes total sense. So the text messaging the whole idea with text messaging is good and is bad. It can be certainly used for bad purposes, and you just want to stay on the good side of that and make sure that your text messages continue to go through to your customer. Like you said, I think I said it, but be purposeful with those messages.
And I think at the end of the day, there's always going to be, there's give and take, right? But like, this whole, hey, the younger you get, the less you want to talk to people.
The younger you get,
or the older you get in some cases. I mean, at the end of the day, here's the deal. If you need something right away, you're going to have to change the mechanism that you're using to get what you want. Or you can stay in the slow lane, and that's fine too. But like, I'm teaching, my kids are still really young, right? But like a toddler like level basically. But as they grow up and as we introduce cell phones in their hand, which probably, be careful about how early you do that, I hear, but it's like, hey, when I was younger, Scott, maybe this is what happened with you. My parents always said, make sure you have enough change in your pocket to call home on a payphone. Like, so I've adopted that as I've grown up, by the way, right? Like, I usually have a quarter or 50 cents, right? So I could call for a ride, whatever. As I got older, I flipped that to make sure you have enough cash on you that if you lose your wallet, you can get home.
Gotcha.
Right. So as a guy who travels a lot, right, I want to make sure that I could show up to the counter in an airport with cash, which I know is not normal, but they'll take your money, trust me, and like buy a flight home because you've lost whatever payment method you have, right? I know that's an old school thought. It's definitely paid off for me, right? But I'm just saying, like, we want to make sure that if you need something, text messaging or chat or app bot or whatever, I don't know, like, it's still called a phone. Sometimes you need to pick up the phone and actually call people.
Well, listen, I want to end on one note or ask you a question. So you brought up just a minute ago the pay phones, and I certainly remember my father, because he was out on the road all the time and there was no cell phones. He got pagers. He had a beeper, and he would get a page and he'd have to pull over to a pay phone on the side of the road, and he used to keep a stack of quarters with him to make that phone call. So, but as you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, God, how long ago has that been? Because
there's still pay phones.
I mean, I saw one, seriously.
I know they're not everywhere anymore, but they're out there.
You would struggle to find one if you needed one, though.
Yeah, I would think.
They're not on every corner anymore.
All right. Here's a scenario. You're walking down the street in whatever town you're in. Somebody like purse snatcher, right? Steal your cell phone, run away, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? You got to go into the convenience store and ask to borrow their phone. Like, I mean,
I'm going to use my Apple Watch because it's got LTE on it.
Okay, and you're going to talk through your phone or your watch, Dick Tracy over here. Okay, all right. If that's your plan, that's fine. I know not everybody's going to walk away with like a backup phone in their bag.
Well, right? They might steal your watch too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would think that could be one of those. So I don't know, like, at the end of the day, I think it's, the world has changed, but I still think that, if somebody stole my phone, I'd probably go and be like, hey, somebody just stole my phone. Can I borrow your phone to call someone? Right. Like, I think that would be reasonable. And like, there's somewhere nearby, or at least I can borrow a phone. Although, some people might look at you funny and be like, yeah, whatever. Imagine somebody walking up to you saying, hey, can I borrow your phone? I think you might question whether you'd let them borrow your phone. I don't know.
Yeah. It depends.
Maybe I'm just one of those people.
I might put it on speakerphone and dial the number for them.
There you go. Because like, it's a $1,500 phone in your hand, right? So
yep.
All good. Well, Scott, I appreciate your time. Hopefully everybody, like, we're trying to be informative with these. I'm more about educating people than I'm about, hey, the show special here. If you buy before the end of today, I'll give you a deal. Like, I'm more about making sure people understand, like, the big picture about what's going on and what's available. But, if you have any, questions about, if it's not even bvoip, right? Like, hey, I'm running into this issue. My provider's telling me this. I'm trying to activate SMS and I'm getting this response back, whatever, right? If we can help you in any way, shoot me a message. Happy to tell you what I think could or could not be the answer for you. Just trying to pay it forward. And if not, and hopefully everything's working in whatever realm you're in. Otherwise, you don't have to be a bvoip customer to come have a few beers at a block party. All are well.
But if you want a great provider and you're an MSP listening to this and you are interested in changing your VoIP providers, give a shot to bvoip. I've been very happy with bvoip. I have to say, I'm an IT business owner myself, and Jordan, we've been using your platform for what, over 2 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And I love having these chats with you because I learned something new about bvoip that I'm not actually utilizing, and I still love it. And I don't even use all the stuff. Like, I don't even think we text on bvoip.
Just got to turn it on if that's what
you I know. I just need to turn it on.
So that's the cool part, right? Yeah, like, I like things that constantly get better, right? I think technology is a realm that usually happens that way. We could have a whole debate on, companies getting acquired and, what happens after that. And like, things maybe don't, progress as they did, whatever. Not the problem with bvoip, 100%, non-invested here, right? We don't have any outside investors or PE, VC, whatever. We just like to build stuff and like solve problems with it. And I think that's why most people get into technology in whatever realm you do. So, yeah, I mean, we also made sure from that angle, Scott, and, hopefully everybody has a really good experience like you, right? And like, hey, what don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, no long-term contracts, month to month. You can cancel with 30 days notice anytime. It gets prorated. There's no minimums, right? I don't have, you know, I need to sell so much to be a universe level partner, right? Like you could just have a one account with one person on it if that's what you need. But generally speaking, right, we've made it really low risk for you to walk down this, you know, bvoip lane, because that's the business model that we felt was right. So, you know, hopefully everybody appreciates, you know, people who do that, right? And like anytime I run into another vendor in the space that does that because they can, I love hearing that, right? Because I think that benefits everybody.
There you go. Well, George, thanks again for your time this morning. I was going to say this afternoon, but for me and you, I think it is, it's not even 11 o'clock in the morning yet. The day is just beginning.
Not yet for lunch. We're almost there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, George, thanks again for your time. We'll have to do this again soon.
Have a good one, everyone.
See you, man. Bye-bye.